What's up, everybody? Welcome to this new episode of Touchdown Texas. I'm your host, Shiva Patel, and I'm my co host here, Nick Rodriguez. What a weekend for the Texas Longhorns. 12 players drafted, a program record. We're going to dive deep into it because it was a very exciting weekend for the Texas Longhorns. But, Nick, how are you feeling, man, after the draft?
I feel great, man. Like you said, it was a long weekend. A lot of guys went. We had guys go early in the first round, and then all the way into the seventh round. So it was a good weekend to be a Texas Longhorn, and we'll get right into it.
Let's get right into it. Before we get started, be sure to like and subscribe to this video. Touchdown Texas fans, we appreciate the support. It really helps us. And go back and watch some of our previous content episodes. We have some great spring content, and even last season. And we cannot wait. We're getting closer to football as we approach the month of May. But again, the draft is the biggest topic. So we're going to go talk about the players that were really highly drafted for the Longhorns. We had 3 players drafted in the first round. Let's talk about the big O lineman, Kelvin Banks, number 9 to the New Orleans Saints. How much do you like this fit for him? Kelvin Banks is going to New Orleans.
It's good. I don't really know if we talked about this as a landing spot. I know we talked about the Miami Dolphins and some other teams as well, but obviously, it's a team that needed an offensive lineman. They were in the quarterback conversation with Shador and Tyler Shuck, and they obviously took Tyler Shuck later on. In the second round. But I think this is a great move for them. They need to shore up their offensive line. He's a great spot for that. Mimbu and
Will Campbell.
Campbell were already gone, so this is a good spot for Banks to go.
I like this fit because you have a franchise tackle with Kelvin Banks for the next 10 years that you could line up. Ryan Ramczyk retired, so there's some spots along the offensive line that is needed. He might start out as guard, but he's going to go eventually to left tackle. That's where he's going to be his position in the NFL. And Derek Carr can really use somebody like Kelvin Banks as well as somebody like Alvin Kamara to really open up the rushing lanes for him. Because at times last year, it was very congested and the line was not getting any push up front. I like that the Saints addressed this need. Like Nick said, we did not expect the Saints to go with Kelvin Banks. We thought he was going to go 10 to the Bears and maybe after. But offensive linemen were a premium because Membu and Campbell already went.
Right.
So the Saints knew that they had to get their guy. And I love it. And Kelvin Banks is going to be a high impact player for the New Orleans Saints. And he did his work at Texas. I just want to give a shout out to him because in the past, Texas has been known for not developing players. Well, Calvin Banks was a 5-star tackle coming out of Houston. What does he do? Comes to Texas. By the second week of fall camp, he's the starter, and he plays 3 years at Texas and gets drafted in the top 10. This is such a huge recruiting tool because not only can we develop under recruited guys like Gunnar Helm and Barron, but also the 5-star guys can come to Texas, handle their business, and get drafted early. So now let's talk about the next player that got drafted, Jahdae Barron at number 22, the Broncos. What do you think about this pick? He is a cornerback.
Yeah, this makes sense too. We didn't really know where he would start to go. Him and other defensive backs. So this was a great spot for him. Patrick Surtain is already there in Denver. That'd be a great combination. Jade is a guy that can do all sorts of things: nickel, zone. He's played safety before in his college career, so it's a guy who can really do it all. He goes to the Broncos, a good organization that just made the playoffs last season, and they're looking to win and keep building on that. So I think Jade is a good fit for them. Sean Payton's going to love him. I think Sean Payton's already made remarks about how much he loves Jade Barron and how well he carries himself. So it's a good landing spot for Jade Barron at pick number 20.
Definitely. And fans also, when we post this video, we definitely want to get your reactions in the comment section. What do you think about the landing spots for this Longhorns? We want to make this a collaborative episode. But do you agree with disagree with us on this? But for Johnny Barron, the Broncos love Longhorns. They have PJ Locke, Brandon Jones. They even signed Sam Ellinger. So he is the backup quarterback for the Denver Broncos. And him and Sertan are going to be unstoppable. It's going to be a no-fly zone. And you need that kind of, air defense against the very high potent offenses in this division with the Chargers with Justin Herbert and company. Of course, we know with the Chiefs and their dynamic offense. Also, you have some great safeties that are there. Like I said, Brandon Jones, Turner Yell is a great safety, and they have the defensive pass rushers up front. So I like what the Broncos are doing on defense because they know in this division you have to be able to stop people. But Johnny Barron can take the ball away. He has great ball skills, great coverage skills. He's a versatile chess piece, and he's not afraid to get physical in the run game. And his greatest strength is he's a smart, cerebral player. He loves to dive into film, studying offensive tendencies, and he's going to really help out the safety and DB room for the Denver Broncos. And that's going to be very fun to see him and his team go against Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert twice a year. Well, so now the next pick, so the last first round pick for the Texas Longhorns was Matthew Golden. So he went to the hometown Packers. The draft was in Green Bay. How do you like this fit with Golden going to the Packers?
It's good. I think it's a good spot. I mean, we talked about Green Bay at some points during the draft process. Just didn't know if he would be there because there were some things that seemed like he'd be earlier picked. Um, but he goes 23 to Green Bay. I think it's a great landing spot for them. They have good receivers there. Um, they just get injured. They have trouble staying healthy, but he's a guy that's reliable. He's really good in the red zone. He has the speed, and maybe he can continue to utilize that speed at the next level. Doesn't have a ton of weaknesses really in his game. So I think he was the third wide receiver taken off the board after Emeka and McMillan from Arizona, who went to the Panthers. So yeah, I think it's a great spot. I mean, he's got a great quarterback in Jordan Love. He's gonna become, Jordan Love's best
Mm-hmm.
friend. He's always gonna be open and reliable for you, and I think it's a good spot for him. And you're right. The draft was in Green Bay, so he got a home greeting to Packers fans when he
And
got
he
picked.
even let out a "Go Pack Go." He's already ingratiating himself with the Packers fans. He was a
Right.
Longhorn fan favorite. I believe he's going to be one of the favorites of the Packers fans. So Nick was talking about the young wide receivers. They have excellent receivers. With Romeo Dobbs, Jalen Reed, Christian Watson. They have a great tight end in Tucker Kraft. It's just that those young wide receivers, nobody has been able to establish themselves. They just have a lot of good wide receivers, but nobody is able to set themselves as the number one wide receiver. And that's something Matthew Golden is able to do because what separates himself is he's a reliable wide receiver. He won't drop passes, and he'll be a safety blanket for Jordan Love in tough third down or red zone situations. So I think Golden has a great chance to be wide receiver number one, or at the worst, wide receiver number two. And that's an important position for him because I think the Packers have been needing a franchise wide receiver. And Matthew Golden is a hard worker. He worked himself up, being a 3-star out of high school, going to Houston, coming to Texas. Nobody expected him coming into Texas to be a first round pick. And Matthew Golden is going to be a great addition for the Green Bay Packers. So now those are the 3 first round picks. Let's move on to the second round at number 43. Alfred Collins going to the 49ers. What do you think about this pick?
Well, it's great. I mean, they love defense. They love having the big people, whether it's the offensive line on the offensive side of the ball, or if it's the defensive line on the defense side of the ball. Having Joey Bosa. So many guys in their lineage that they like to have. So they drafted Michael Williams from Georgia um, in the first round, Alfred Collins in the second round. That's a great duo to have together. Alfred Collins is gonna, mess the play up. He's not gonna always get the sacks and everything, but he's gonna be involved and make plays a little easier for the rest of the team. And you got Fred Warner back there. You still got a lot of good players on that 49ers team. They just got a little older. I think Micah Williams from Georgia, Alfred Collins helps you go a little younger and still have an elite defense.
Definitely. The 49ers are trying to get back to the dominant defensive line that was the staple of their team when they were competing for Super Bowls. They took a little bit of a step back last year. I don't believe they made the playoffs. So they
They
did
did
not.
not.
Thank you. So Michael Williams and Alfred Collins as the D tackles inside are going to be scary. Then on the edge, you have Joey Bosa, or excuse me, Nick Bosa. That is going to be scary. Alfred Collins is going to be one of the starters. He's going to eat. He can take on double teams. He has great hand placement and he could shed off blocks really well. He could stop the run as well as rush the passer. And I'm happy for Alfred Collins because coming into Texas, he was a 5-star in the 2020 class. And it took him 5 years at Texas for the light bulb to finally come on for him to reach his potential to be a high NFL draft pick. And I'm so happy this year it finally came together for him. He put an entire season together. But I credit him because, as you know, Nick, a lot of people would have left and bailed early on the program if it's not going his way, and he
Definitely.
stayed through
Yeah.
it, worked hard, believed in the vision of Steve Sarkisian. He had Bo Davis as his coach, and then he had Kenny Baker, so he's had multiple defensive line coaches. So I credit Alfred Collins. We know he has the athleticism because his mom is one of the Longhorn greats in Texas women's basketball. So he's like a dancing bear. He's a basketball player in high school. So he has a great feet, and it shows. Alfred Collins to the 49ers is he's going to make an immediate impact for sure. So this may be my favorite picks, even though it's painful as a Cowboys fan. But I'm happy that Makuba went to the Eagles. And Nick, what can I say? The Eagles keep stealing great players in the draft.
Yeah, they're becoming like the Ravens, where they just a guy falls, or the guy's not nabbed at the right time, and they just land the perfect player. Makuba, great player. I mean, he's a guy who we talked about. We didn't know really where he was going to go, how much people would love him. Obviously, he played most of his career at Clemson. Had his grad year at the University of Texas. Came up with a huge play against Arizona State. So great player. I always said he had a high IQ. Goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. They're just loaded right now. I mean, they're just replenishing defensive line, offensive line. They're just so loaded. And on the back end, they get Makuba. They can pair him up with Quinion Mitchell and so many other guys that they already have on their team. But it's a great landing spot for Makuba. Another Longhorn went to the Eagles as well. So this is a great spot for Makuba or any really young player that's going to an NFL team. They just won the Super Bowl. They know what they're doing, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
So the Eagles got a steal with Andrew Makuba because he's going to replace C.J. Gardner Johnson, who was a safety for them, and he was a great safety, but he was getting a little older, and they didn't want to pay him. So they already had the great cornerbacks, Quinion Mitchell and then Cooper DeJean. Well, the safety position, they have Reed Blankenship, who's a good player for them. Don't get me wrong, but Makuba has a little bit more upside. He brings more physicality. He could really hit, but he doesn't ever get called for targeting, which is very impressive. And he has great ball skills. He can intercept passes. He can break up balls. He's just a smart safety that knows where to be all the time and how to get his players lined up. He's going to increase the communication with the Eagles in the back end, and Makuba is going to be a steal for the Eagles. They got him with the last pick in the second round, and this is a great value pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. So we talked about, so these are the 5 players that went in the first 2 rounds. But before we talk about Quinn, who is another player that we did not talk about that you like as a landing spot, a Longhorn that got drafted that you think it will be a good fit for him?
Well, we had Vernon. Well, I was gonna say Vernon Broughton, but I also think Gunnar Helm to the Titans was a good spot. He went to the Tennessee Titans a little bit later on. I think like the 5th round in that range. Cam Ward is your quarterback of the future. Obviously, he was number 1 overall pick. Usually, young quarterbacks, like a tight end or running back to rely on. And for Gunnar Helm, I think that's going to be him. He'll be reliable to catch the ball. He's got to work on his blocking, but I think it's a good spot for him, and he should be able to start. There's not really a guy in front of him that should be taking all the reps. Maybe there is right now, but by the time the season starts, he should be the guy. So Vernon Broughton was good. I was going to talk about him, but then Gunnar Helm, just kind of a sneaky pick that not everyone is talking about. That I think people will talk about more once the season gets started and he starts performing.
So to Nick's point, Gunnar Helm got drafted in the fourth round in that range, and that was a great also value pick because we know if he actually was healthy during the combine, I believe he could have went late second, early third. I looked at the Titans roster, their tight ends. They have good tight ends, but nobody great. So Gunnar Helm can make an impact. They have good wide receivers, and that's going to take the pressure off of Cam Ward, especially if they like to play 12 personnel. So they can put Gunnar Helm in those kind of situations and find a matchup against a linebacker and that could be Cam Ward's third or fourth read if the defense is playing whatever coverage they are. And Gunnar Helm is a reliable pass catcher. He's going to catch the ball, but he also can get you yards after catch, and he has some athletic ability. He's going to work hard. He's going to be a staple for this Tennessee Titans offense. It's just a matter of just learning the playbook and getting comfortable with Cam Ward in the offensive system the Tennessee Titans like to run. So great call for that. But I'm going to talk about a different player. So Vernon Broughton, who Nick brought up, I love that he's going to the New Orleans Saints. So by the way, Bo Davis, former Texas defensive line coach, left Texas. He went to LSU, and now he's the Saints defensive line coach. He actually called Vernon Broughton, telling him that he's going to pick him. I was a little surprised because I thought, full disclosure, he was going to go in the fifth through seventh round, but they drafted him a round early. But he has the motor, he has the tenacity, he has the build to make an impact for the Saints and get after the passer. And I like that because he's another guy that likes to work hard, plays the right way. So I'm going to go Vernon Broughton to the Saints, but I also like your call out for Gunnar Helm to the Titans. So now let's talk about Quinn Ewers. So he did have a slide going to the seventh round to the Miami Dolphins on day 3. I wanted to ask you, so there's two things I want to cover. First, were you surprised that he fell this far? And second, how do you like the fit to the Miami Dolphins?
Well, first, I'll answer your first question in regards to was I surprised that he fell? Yes, definitely. He was not the only quarterback that fell. I thought a lot of quarterbacks kind of fell farther than I thought. Obviously, Shador fell quite a bit. But even Kyle McCord is a guy that I really like that fell pretty far. I'm not a big Will Howard fan, but he fell. Riley Leonard. Guys that I thought I would just go before, just didn't. My take on Quinn has always been he is a top 5 quarterback in this class. So there's some guys that I had no problem going ahead of them, like a Shador, like a Jackson Dart, even a Tyler Shuck. I can see the potential and why Ewers would be behind those guys. Some of the guys I thought he's definitely better than, like Will Howard, like Riley Leonard. I think he's clearly more talented and better than those guys. So I don't know how he fell that far behind some of those players. However, in terms of fit, and obviously Cam Ward, he would obviously be behind Cam Ward. But in terms of fit, I think he landed in one of the best spots. So it's not always where you go, or it's not always when you go, but where you go. So he goes to 7th round. He's picked 231. He goes to Miami Dolphins. They have 2 quarterbacks ahead of him. They got Tua, who's a great quarterback, but he's got injury concerns, and they have Zach Wilson. So Zach Wilson has a lot of ups, but he's had a lot of downs too. So I think in terms of a guy playing his first year, his rookie year, he won't be the only one, but he has a great opportunity. And you have the Mike McDaniel offense, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. So he fell pretty far. I don't know why the Dolphins waited so long to draft somebody. Maybe they didn't want to have some sort of controversy with Tua if they pick someone so early. But it's a great landing spot. Obviously, a guy like Cam Ward is going to start from day one. Shador will probably start at some point, but they have so many quarterbacks in the roster. It's not a perfect situation. But in terms of weapons and opportunity to play, I think it worked out pretty well for Quinn.
It definitely did, and I was shocked with the players that got selected in front of him. So I'll read you some of them. In the sixth round, there was a lot of quarterbacks taken. Kyle McCord to the Philadelphia Eagles, Will Howard to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Riley Leonard to the Indianapolis Colts. Crazy. Graham Mertz, who had a torn ACL, was out for half the year. He was taken by the Houston Texans. Tommy Mallet from Montana State was taken by the Las Vegas Raiders. Cam Miller was also taken by the Las Vegas Raiders in the sixth round. And Curtis Rourke, the Indiana quarterback, was taken by the San Francisco 49ers in the sixth round. I was shocked. I think Quinn is better than those players, but it must have been something with his medicals, something because they must not have felt comfortable because he's been injured a lot. Even then, he has the football upside and the football pedigree and the skills. I just don't understand why you would not want to take a chance on him sooner because he's only 22 years old. He had played in a lot of big games. He had a lot of great stats, and when he was healthy, he balled out. So this was head scratching for me. Love the fit for the Dolphins because they have the offensive weapons around him. A-Chain, the running back, he's an awesome running back. They have Jalen Waddle. They like to run a lot of RPO and screen passes, which that's something Quinn is very familiar with and very comfortable with. McDaniel is from the Shanahan tree, so he knows he's played in this offense before because it's very similar to Sark's pro style offense. He might start out on the practice squad because they guaranteed Zach Wilson $6 million, so they might play Zach Wilson as QB2, and usually teams only keep two quarterbacks. But then if something happens to Tua, there may be an opportunity for Quinn to play midway through the season into the playoffs. There is some precedent to this. The Dolphins drafted Skylar Thompson with the seventh round in 2022, and he actually started the end of the regular season and in the playoffs. So I think Quinn is better than Skylar Thompson, and he has the opportunity. He just needs to learn, develop, and stay healthy. He can have a very productive career with the Miami Dolphins. But Nick, just one more time for those people that are new to our channel, I want you to just talk about how much of an impact Quinn Ewers has had on the Texas Longhorns program the last 3 years. I think it needs to be said again because the focus right now is him falling in the draft.
Well, I mean, he brought Texas back. I mean, Sam Ellinger is definitely a part of that, kind of getting us to decency. But you have to have someone before the guy because you need to get the recruits involved. But Quinn came. He won a lot of football games here. He took us to two semifinal games where we were within a play of going to the championship. I think he's being pretty unfairly, graded here. That would not be on the same as other players. Like you said, Graham Mertz had an ACL injury and he was out for most of the season. I don't know. It's interesting. He's a fantastic player. He had kind of a weird career just because of the whole Arch situation, which we're excited for Arch, but a lot of guys were clamoring for Arch. When it was definitely Quinn's time, and he falls, but again, he falls to a great organization, a great team, a great situation. I think it's going to benefit him when you are naming off the quarterbacks in the rounds. Half of those guys are not going to see the field. Um, Kyle McCord to the Eagles, he is not going to be playing. He's behind, Jalen Hurts. Even Will Howard for the Steelers, I don't think he's their day one plan to be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You mentioned a guy, I can't remember off the top of my head, who's going to be starting for the Houston
Oh, yeah.
Texans.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the backup? CJ Stroud will obviously start the Colts. I don't think
Oh,
he's going
Riley
to be
Leonard.
starting for the
Yeah.
Colts. So, right. So there's just it's unfortunate the way that this has fallen for Quinn. Obviously, he's done nothing off the field. He was such a leader for UT, but I think he'll still hold it down. He's coming to Atlanta as a Dolphin. So we plan on going to see him there. But yeah, I think he'll get his opportunity as long as he keeps doing what he can do, and maybe he's not like you said, maybe he's not 100% healthy, and this is an opportunity for him to get healthy over the course of the season, and maybe he will play this season or even down the line. But I like his odds in
I like
Miami.
his odds. Even if he doesn't play, he can continue to get healthy and develop under a quarterback guru like Mike McDaniel. And just going back to the Quinn legacy, so he went to Ohio State, and without him transferring to Texas, he brought stability with the quarterback program, especially after Sam Ellinger left. And I just think that he played well in so many big games. Alabama in Austin, Alabama in Tuscaloosa, Michigan. He brought us the Big 12 championship. He brought us back in the right direction. And he is third among quarterbacks in passing touchdowns. And he will be a top 5 Texas quarterback of all time in the modern era. I think that's fair to say. We can debate what position he'll be in that, but I respect Quinn Ewers, a hometown kid, grew up loving Texas, always wanted to play for the Burnt Orange, stayed loyal, was in a tough situation, handled the Arch Manning, circus very well as a backup as having a celebrity backup quarterback. And Quinn Ewers is going to have a great NFL career, I believe, and I cannot wait to watch him when he plays for the Miami Dolphins. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode of Touchdown Texas. And be sure to follow us on our social media channels at touchdown_Texas. Like and subscribe to this video. Next week, we'll do a little bit of a spring wrap up because they ended spring practice on Saturday. There's some post spring football rankings of both the teams and the quarterbacks that me and Nick will react to. But until then, we'll see you next time.